episode number 13, lucky episode number 13. And we have a wonderful guest, another wonderful guest for us chatting with us today. So we have a Rosie Anderson, and I'm not going to list all of her, positions currently. Rosie can present herself, but first of all, thank you for coming along, Rosie, to chat with us.
You're welcome. 13 is actually my lucky number. Both of my children were born on the 13th. One was elected section on Friday the 13th as well, because it's the day of the goddess. So I'm more than happy to be here on the 13th episode.
Well, that's brilliant. That's a brilliant, and I guess it's the way how you look at it. Glass half empty or glass half full. But I guess I just first of all wanted to delve into your a bit about your career, or maybe just we start with the positions that you currently held. If you could just summarize, I guess there's very few people who don't know Rosie, but those who don't, what does Rosie
Okay.
do currently?
So I used to be in recruitment. I did 20 years or 2 decades in tech recruitment, about 8 of them in cybersecurity recruitment. I now work as a magical genie person, which was the advert that went viral for that security company. They wanted someone who wasn't a sales sort of droid with KPIs, who cared about community, which is something that's really important to me. I was part of the team that started Bsides Lancashire. I'm part of the team that brought back Bsides Leeds. And then I do a few other things. I like sort of community type things. So I run the mentoring for Caps Lock. So that's a separate sort of program. Caps Lock's a retraining program. I'm not going to call it a boot camp because boot camp always gets that sort of dirty word, that retrains adults into cybersecurity. And then, so we've got like a Cheshire lunchtime meetup that happens every 6 weeks. Realised that Manchester, despite being the best city, didn't have any regular cybersecurity meetups. So we've set up a 2600, which is basically we meet up on the first Friday of the month in a pub. So yeah, I'm kind of a bit of a community girl, is kind of how I describe it. I feel like my skills of sort of bringing people together. So obviously I'm not the only person doing B-sides Lancashire, the only person doing B-sides Leeds, but I'm very much a connector, I think, and sort of bring communities together. So that's what I would sort of say as a very short,
Yeah.
long intro.
Exactly. No, but I think it's wonderful, and I think if I just kind of just before we go, I guess delve deeper, tap into that. I've kind of written an article as well before. I think about which kind of covered about why cold sales and cold emailing is dead in cybersecurity, and I think it's really important that sometimes I think vendors or companies that recognize the power of community or the power of bringing communities together and sharing expertise, you become sort of a go-to person or go-to company that people will seek advice from. So,
Mm.
I think that's how you can do sales, but you actually, you help people achieve their strategic goals, and then you become a go-to sort of partner instead of, bombarding stuff with people, I guess, with, emails, calls, and stuff like that.
Yeah, we don't do any outbound at all at that security company. I mean, I've been there 9 months now, but we don't do any cold calling. We don't do any outreach. We just, I don't know. Would people do come to us because they either they know of us or they've heard of us or they see Eliza's post on LinkedIn, but we're not there sell, sell, sell as a person, as a company. That's not our ethos at all. I think there's two parts to there's a community and there's an industry. The industry is there to sell. The community is there to that they're the users, I suppose. They're the people who are in the industry that care about it. They might not make the buying decisions, but if you go to B-sides, we were both at InfoSec yesterday. InfoSec is very vendor driven. It's great. Like, don't get me wrong. It was a great, I didn't spend much time in the conference hall. I spent most of the time in the pub, which is also great. But community events aren't there to sell. There's no pay to play. Yes, you sponsor community events like a B-sides, but you're not allowed any talks that are just purely sales. There's lots of conferences that are very industry focused
Yeah.
rather than actually solving the problems that the community know are there.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, it's definitely sometimes something that's missing, and the more engagement we do, the better outcomes we can achieve. Because sometimes I think, you know, however great the industry is, the more we can collaborate and the more we can bring fresher ideas out of, all of the other industries, the better we're going to be collectively. But I just wanted to tap in because I'm always interested to, cover people's careers, how they ended up. So, I guess first of all, sometimes, however way you look at it, usually when you ask someone, people don't normally grow up to be a recruiter. So how does someone falls into tech recruitment?
So I started very young. I was privately educated, and at 16, I went a little bit wayward. I left home, and it was my auntie's recruitment business. It was her job to make me realise that I should carry on sixth form, go to university, because I was on an Oxbridge type program. That's what my parents wanted me to
Mm,
do. And it was my auntie's business that I joined, and I found actually I quite like earning money. I'm not sure what I want to be, so let's not go down that sort of path. And fell into tech recruitment. This was sort of, well, more than 20 years ago now. The IT recruitment, or the IT industry then, was very much like the cybersecurity industry is now. Wasn't so much professionalized. It was, well, I worked through many recessions, sort of tech recessions, but
mm,
actually meeting people and sort of, this is your problem, this is your solution, let's marry it together, let's hunt for the right sort of people. I found I had a natural affinity for that. I
mm,
work quite fast. I'm very good at remembering things, and I was trained. I was trained, I suppose. My mum was a hairdresser, so I was grown up being able to talk to anybody and everybody.
yeah.
Like from the age of 12, I was working in my mum's salon, sort of washing people's hair, whatever that you sort of do. Um, I loved it. I loved recruitment, and I wasn't actually actively looking to leave recruitment. Before I had my first child, I've got two children. Before I had Milo, I was doing IT recruitment, and they wanted everybody to specialize into a certain area, and cybersecurity wasn't new, but was sort of newish to me. I always loved like 24 and things like that. Anything that MI5 spooks,
Yeah.
spooks as it was, spooks. What the hell's up? You can tell I'm a bit tired today. Um, so I decided that yes, actually, if I'm going to specialize in anything, I'd like to specialize in cybersecurity. And tech to cyber isn't massive jump from a recruitment side. Got involved in Bsides and things like that. Then had my second child just before lockdown. Um, and I ended up sort of, the company I was working for was really corporate, and they decided that they wanted to move away from cybersecurity. They wanted to carry on in engineering. And I'd had somebody reach out to me whilst I was on maternity leave to be like, I'm starting a business. Do you want to join? And I'm like, no, I'm on maternity leave with my second child. I'm not absolutely crazy. But went back, then it changed. And actually, I was absolutely crazy and did that. Did that for about sort of 2.5 years. Loved working for myself, but it is quite lonely. And my auntie actually came to work with me,
Mhm.
but I knew she was going to retire at the end of the year. I saw Eliza's post, recommended a couple of people to Eliza, and then I think I'd seen her after a conference. And this is a perfect example of it's not what you know, it's who you know sometimes.
Yeah.
I think it was after DTX or a conference or something like that. And sort of we'd had a bit of a chat. Had she failed the role? And I think I must have been a bit tipsy. So let's have a chat. I'll talk to you about what you want to do and let's see if I can help. And then before I knew it, I was offered the job. Didn't apply, didn't like properly apply, didn't write a CV. I think that would have put me off anyway. Yeah, and it was come and work with me, which it's the best move I've ever made. Genuinely, I feel like I'm at home. It's a company of, I think Eliza describes it as misfits. I kind of, yeah, we're all very different. We've got some amazing people that work in the company, and I absolutely love it. Every day is so much fun, which I suppose is an accolade. Maybe ask me in 5 years' time. But now
No,
every day.
no, but I think it's a perfect example. I always say, even now, I guess coming up in or going through the levels in my career, when you get towards the leadership, I've seen examples how not to do or how not to lead. So
Mhm.
I try to breathe the leadership sort of the way I would want someone to lead me. And I think that sort of shows, as you say, when you create a specific culture, there's always that line, but probably if you go back 10 years ago, somebody used to say, find the passion and you're never going to work in a day in your life. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, it's still work. But when you find that, like what cybersecurity currently is to me, I think it really, it's never, I guess, a day where, you thinking, oh no, I need to go to work. It's
It's
every
worth
day
the
is,
grind, I think. Yeah, like,
yeah, you
don't get
just
me wrong,
need to,
it's
yeah,
hard
I
work.
guess, yeah, need to find something that's worthwhile
Yeah.
going into work, and I think that's really important. Now, if we look at the magical genie person who she is,
Yeah.
I just wanted to, I guess, to showcase some of the things I think what we can talk later on caps talk and things like that. But sometimes I think cybersecurity has that stigma of being very, very technical and being obviously very demanding on how to get in. So, how do you find your transition from recruitment into Magical Genie or head of strategic solutions went? And do you believe that, obviously, as you say, skills that you develop through recruitment, as in talking to people? Because, like, I know, for example, I've been working to some people, there are people who are now making companies that can technical CISOs advise how to talk to the board and build on
Mm.
those softer skills that some technical people might be lacking.
Yeah, so definitely my skills in recruitment helped. Through sort of helping understand jobs and understand, I suppose, technical job specs, I understand what pieces go together, what words go together. Obviously, I'm never going to be able to unplug a firewall. I wouldn't even know what it would look like, where to find one.
Yeah,
Um, but I understand the terminology and I understand how these people will describe that. One of the things in recruitment I used to always to say is, so, okay, so tell me what you do. Like, and if there's a new tool or a new technique or, understanding the difference between penetration testing, white box, black box, all of that, all those phrases, you had to understand that as a recruiter. Now, obviously, you're never going to be a pen tester, but you need to understand what they do to a high level.
yeah,
And the best people are the ones that can describe that. However, what I do now as a magical genie person or head of strategic solutions is I'm unpicking problems. So I'm speaking to somebody about their challenges. So, what's your biggest challenge in cybersecurity? Maybe it's they want security visibility. Maybe it's they want to know that their systems are secure. Maybe they don't know where to start. They've been asked to create a strategy and they want like a high level overview of their business and some recommendations. So all of those things are very different. I'm not there to sell a solution until I'm not really there to sell anything. I'm there to solve their problem. If I can't understand their problem, then either that they don't know what their problem is, which is fine, that's a different skill set, or I'm not if they don't know what their problem is and they can't articulate it, then we're never going to have a solution for that.
yeah,
So it's unpicking that. If you think about a doctor, if you think about if you've got a headache, you're having recurring headaches, and you go to the doctor and they give you migraine tablets, that's solving a surface level problem. A good doctor will talk to you and go through how much water you're drinking, how much exercise, have you had an eye test recently? They'll look at all sorts of different things to try and get that underlying problem. So my job is to really help them to understand or to unpick what their challenges are. If they've got three different things, if you've got if you've got a headache and you've got sore foot and you've got hip problems, like if you treat all those three problems separately, you're going to just end up with a load of tablets or a load of solutions, a load of silver bullets that, they're going to solve all your problems and end your cyber risk or whatever it is, the latest buzz phrase.
yeah,
It's unpicking that and it's asking questions. Now, I'm not technical. I bring the technical people in at the right point, but I'm also not going to bring a technical person in on a first call if a customer doesn't know what they need. It's going to overwhelm them possibly, and also it's going to waste our engineering time. So that's my job, to chat to people, understand what they're looking for. If we can solve it, great. We don't sell products, we don't sell solutions. Well, we sell solutions, but we don't sell products at all. We don't resell anything. We don't partner with anybody. That's kind of what I have to do. But all my skills leading up to this have helped. Now, don't get me wrong, I've had to learn loads. I'm doing training. I'm sitting in with the technical teams. I'm not sure what certification I'm going to do. At some point, I'll do a certification in the next 2 years, but not sure which one yet. But yeah, I can see, like, if I'm going to hire in the future, I will hire for my team. I'm not just going to hire recruiters because that's confirmation bias, but I can definitely see the transferable skills or the people skills are what you need. You can learn the technical skills.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very important. And as you say, it's really refreshing because I've been sometimes, you can talk to vendors or, managed service providers, and you like talking to a wall because they will try and shoehorn your problem into their solution instead of
Mhm.
actually, well, listen and trying to understand where the people problems have. And I think that's what, I've been talking back and forth with Greg Van der Gast as well, talking about actually
Yeah,
homing in on the root cause analysis and digging, that the first problem that you see, that's not necessarily the actual problem. Is you need to, scratch the surface sometimes to actually get and help. Because, the one thing sometimes I see and really problematic what I see where vendors are not realizing is that yes, you can gain a signature and you can sell something, but the problem is, if you thinking really strategically, your goal is to keep customers. The ones
mm,
you just sell normally is going to be ripped out after 12 months because you sold them a dream. So normally I would prefer undersell over deliver instead of oversell and under deliver. And
yeah.
that's why I think, as you say perfectly, homing in, understanding and doing, that job before you actually bring technical people is very important.
Yeah. The other thing is they need to have buy-in from the board. So the person you're speaking to might not have the purchasing power. They have a problem. What does the board see that problem as? Because actually you can speak to 3 different people and they'll have 3 different problems. So
Yep.
one of the things that we also do is, we'll help our customers if they need to make a business case, we'll help with some of that work for them, help them how they position to the board. So that's something that we do as well. We do like lots of different webinars, like how to set a cybersecurity strategy, why that's different to IT, cyber return on investment. We've put together like a cyber framework for return on investment. We've not released that yet, but that's coming out very soon. We just need to re-record the session because Eliza
Yeah.
forgot to ping. It might have been Eliza, might have been me. It was one of the 2 of us anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but
Brilliant.
you can learn if you understand business, which I've been involved in running a business. I've been involved in recruitment for so long. That is typically a business problem. Hiring is a business problem. As long as you can speak to different levels of leaders, you can start to understand how they think, what their problems are. Now, you can't assume that every board's going to be the same. Every business is very different. One of the things that's really surprised me is, particularly in the US, you have a lot of big companies, big strategic, important companies for the US that have one person responsible for IT and cybersecurity. You've got one poor soul that's responsible for all of that. So that customer will have a very different threat problem than another customer because
Yeah.
they're one person on their own. What's important to them is speed, efficiency, support, whereas to another customer that's got a massive team, well, actually, no, they all work in silos. They just need to work together. So it's,
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about, sometimes we forget, I've been talking a lot now about, SMB sort of market, even if you look at UK, that, you know, SMB, I think, employs about 85-90% of the staff or people in UK. And, it's great to work with great big enterprises where they have a security team of 100, but as you say, sometimes the smaller businesses, usually the way it happens is that IT directors normally will inherit security without
mm,
having security expertise. So relying on some trusted partners that can help, it's very important because instead of, just someone, I've seen so many times, someone, will come in and say, oh, you just need to buy sock and they will solve all your problems. Just buy sock. But the problem is people buy sock. Yes, it will solve some of the problems, but the problem is unless you have a technical expertise internally to manage relationship between the sock and continuously improve it, because you can't just buy it and leave it
yeah,
because I've been helping companies who they bought SOC and then pen testing team came in, tested, and SOC didn't detect anything, and then people are throwing toys out of the pram because obviously
yeah.
you've been sold a dream. Well, you need to think about through how how you procure the solutions and making sure that you can take them to the next level over the course of the years.
It's not just buying the solution, it's configuring it.
Yeah.
It's configuring it properly internally. And so many companies, again, I've spoken to, and they've got 2 SIEMs. They didn't realize. You're like, sometimes it's not buying a new solution, it's actually getting better use out of what you've got. If you've got a finite amount of budget, you need to do the best that you can that's relevant for your business. So sometimes it's not a SOC, sometimes it's having properly configured networks and endpoints, and sometimes EDR will do. But if you want full visibility, you need a SIEM. But it's kind of, yeah, every business is different. And I think if you come out of a conversation with a vendor thinking, actually, I thought this was my problem, but now actually I need 3 new shiny tools and they all cost X, you've been sold to. And that's not what we should be doing. We should be solving problems in this industry, not selling silver bullets and then going, oh, sorry, it wasn't done right.
Yeah, it's it's a very important message. I guess I'm thinking through my head. There's so many things going on because obviously we could probably do 10 episodes of what you're doing currently. But if we go back into, so obviously you mentioned that you started running Bsides Lancashire, and then you in some way involved in Bsides Leeds. Now, I guess those are people obviously come to these events, but from another point of view, person who runs them or puts them up, for all those amazing people to attend, can you just cover what goes on into planning and actually putting an event like that? Because I assume it's so much work, and people sometimes might not appreciate dedication it takes to actually it's not something that, oh, we're gonna do it tomorrow and then let's do it overnight
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
done.
So it takes 6 months. So I'll stop back a little bit. When I was pregnant with Milo, who's my eldest, I went to Bsides Leeds, and that was the last Bsides Leeds. I think it was 2015. It was just before the pandemic. No, not sure. Maybe. Whatever the last one was. No, it was 2020. It was, sorry, getting confused. That was before my second child. So I was pregnant, and we made a joke that I would probably deliver the first Bsides baby because I was about 8 months pregnant, and it was literally just before the pandemic. And then Mark Carney had said he wasn't going to do it anymore. This was the last one. He'd done 3. I think he'd done 3. So I was trying desperately to get Glenn, I think it was Glenn initially, to help bring it back, because Bsides Leeds was one of the biggest. London's the biggest. It was one of Manchester didn't happen anymore. So I was messaging Glenn saying, come on, let's do it. Let's bring Bsides Leeds back. And he kept saying no. He actually said he needed a Sam to a Ben, which is like Bsides Newcastle. He was a great ideas person, but he needed a doer. And I said, well, I'll be your doer, but then we need a bigger team. So he said yes about the same time I was asked to do Bsides Lancashire. So again, there wasn't a Bsides in Manchester. That was a big thing for me. Like, you don't want to like try and take something over. Bsides Manchester wasn't coming back. So Bsides Lancashire, he said, I've got Lancaster Uni are keen. They'll host us. So it was Sean reached out to me for that team. So both, I'd kind of didn't think Leeds was going to happen, said yes to Lancs, and I'm like, oh crap, now I'm organising 2. So what goes on? It takes at least 6 months. You need sponsors. Sponsors are amazing. You can't run a conference without sponsorship, because even to feed people, so both Lancs and Leeds, we feed about 350 people. The food bill's about 15 grand, give or take. So that's a lot of money. So you can't do it without the support from the vendors. And the vendors are amazing. They do come and support, and they know they're not going to get, like, you go to InfoSec, you're not going to get your details sold. You're not going to get anyone's email list. That's always something we're really clear on. You're not got scanners. You're there to support community events. You can submit to the call for papers, but if you're selling something, it ain't going to get accepted. So I think the ones that I'm involved in, you need a good team. Who've all got different strengths. Some can bring in vendors, some can help with organisation on the day, some can do the website, some can help with the programme. Some people are just ideas and are great at bringing ideas, not just ideas, great at bringing those ideas. Some have a theme. So Bsides Lancs is always midweek. It's always going to be midweek because it has to be when the university are away, when the students are away. Whereas most Bsides are on a Saturday.
Yep.
And some people like that, some people don't. Some people can't get the time off work. I always think, well, your business should be encouraging you, if possible. Like, obviously don't like leave all your SOC analysts like off shift because they're at Bsides, but they should be encouraging you to learn in your own time. And a lot of businesses will say, can we buy 10 tickets because we want to take our team? They're the great employers. There's normally a student element. So it's linked in with universities normally because you want students in as well. You want them to be part of the community. And actually, from a student side, if you're hiring students and they're going on a Saturday in their own time to a B-Sides, surely they're the students that you want.
Yeah.
So yeah, it takes about 6 months of planning, going out for the call for papers, getting that in, making sure people know about it. There's some great brand new B-Sides that are starting for the first time. So B-Sides Exeter is in July. I've heard when I was at InfoSec, B-Side Kent might be coming. There might be a B-Side Reading in the offing. I know B-Sides York is trying to come back, but it might be next year. Not come back to start for the first time. So it's great, these pockets of communities. But I will say this, I love B-Sides. I love running a B-Sides, but you also need not just annual events. You need, if there's a community in, so Birmingham, for example, I know someone who's trying to bring B-Sides Birmingham, make that happen. There's a community in Birmingham, you've had Cyber UK there. You need those regular meetup things as well, which is where the DEF CON groups or the DC groups come in, or the 2600s. So DC group typically has talks, whereas 2600 is meet in a pub, everyone welcome. If you want to use DC group or DEF CON group, same with B-Sides, you have to have permission from the owners of those brands.
Yeah. I think it's a really great point what you mentioned is because sometimes, we'll talk a bit about in Caps Lock in a second as well, but I think, as we touched on, InfoSec is great for various things, but InfoSec normally the talks are done by vendors. And whether you like it or not, most of the messaging is our tool will solve your problem. And that's why the talk is. And when you go to B-Sides, I think it's really great place, as you say, bringing students, bringing other people, but it's just essentially learning is one thing because there's normally some great research done or some great papers being discussed. But secondly, as well, I see now as well, there's normally now 2 tracks that split and actually give opportunities for people who never spoken before to actually, because I think as you say in recruitment, even during my mentoring, I think you need to start pushing the agenda that the more people get comfortable presenting, the better they will be in their career. Because I say sometimes to people, no matter how great your idea is, if you can't sell it, it really will get a day of light. So giving the platform to start selling, and then you just say, then building those regular meetups. Because I say, for example, yes, Caps Lock is great because it has the community and you training there, but there are a plethora of people who doing self-learning pathways, and they can be so lost. And actually finding people that can support, because I always sometimes say, especially like in mentoring, where we can talk in a second, but I think the first sort of 4 or 5 weeks can be so daunting to these people that it becomes almost like psychology sort of support sessions where you
Yeah.
bring people up, because making sure that when they get knocked down they can stand up and keep trying, and then once they get into a rhythm they normally
Yeah.
are fine after that.
Yeah, I think it is, and this is sort of leads us nicely on to mentoring. There's so much information out there. The community side is so important when you're trying to find a job, but also like signposting that. One of the panels that was at InfoSec, the Cyber Houseplate panel, was how do we bring all of these communities together? Even in just having like an index. So for example, infosecmap.com, I think it is, that lists all the conferences all around the world. So one of the things that I did, and this was a great example of collaboration. Now, Natasha Harley isn't in recruitment anymore either. She's gone internal. But the two of us put together an ebook, like Hack Your Way into Cyber, that had loads of different resources. It's still on Natasha Harley's LinkedIn profile. I think it's on mine as well, but she updated it most recently. And it's a resource of all the different things you can do. So things like if you're a woman, Ladies Hacking Society, there's Th4ts3cur1ty, there's AFCIA's like an ex-military meetup thing as well that happens monthly. Things like different Slack channels, different, Discords, things like that. But also you don't have to do a training program. You can learn on your own, but then it's doing those write-ups after you've done your different hack the box challenges, putting your own view on what's happened in the press. Like just last week, might have even been this week, you've got the infected blood from a supplier, which is causing issues in London. You've had the Santander breach. You've had Ticketmaster. If you have an understanding and can explain that and why people need to be concerned, then actually you helping get that message out. I think somebody, Lisa Forte, had seen a post from her the other day, might have been this morning on Twitter, helping the public understand cybersecurity is a really important part of what we need to do. Yes, we're talking about data leak, but actually, particularly when you look at the blood scandal, or the blood thing that's going on at the minute, that has consequences that can kill people. You know, that can end lives.
Yeah.
Yes, it's data that we're protecting, but there's people at the end of that data, and there's repercussions of things. It's cybersecurity doesn't just affect businesses and profits, it affects people, it affects children. Though I think the thing that she posted was about the Nigerian scam where young people are being targeted. By young people, I mean sort of teenagers being targeted on social media, and then they're being scammed that their conversations or whatever are going to be leaked to their friends. And there's been a couple of notable suicides from these very young people because they are scared that this is going to get out. That is a real life implication off the back of cybersecurity. So how do we protect the next generation that's coming up being so online? Yeah, so many different parts to that.
Yeah, and I always like to bring. I think sometimes as well when you're talking to people, there's when you're talking about cyber risk, working in a private company, you normally talk about monies. When you go in the public sector, some of the cyber risk actually you can talk about lost lives, such as energy sector, hospitals. So I think we have a way, or we have or we should be aiming to teach the public. Even for example, yesterday I was talking to a head of South Cyber Center, and they get loads of these kind of calls about fraud and what's happening, and education is such an important part, because he had a call, and I'll give you a very simple example. He had a lady on a call who was crying because her whole bank account has been wiped clean, empty, all the savings, everything lost. And he asked a simple question. He said, "Did you have MFA enabled?" She says, "Yes, I did." But her friend told her that she does not believe in MFA, so told her to turn it off. And when she turned it off, 5, 6 hours later, her bank account was empty.
Wow.
And then that's very becomes very hard part, because how do you convince someone who they said that their friend said they don't believe it? So how do you convince someone to turn it back on? And that's the education part, I think, where we need to push and do more to actually help people who don't understand technology.
Yeah. And it is, it's young people, but it's also older people. So like my granddad will not have a banking app. He
Yeah,
goes to the bank. That's how he takes money out. He does not trust the computer
yeah,
or his phone. His phone is probably some Nokia 2210 or 26, whatever it was, the real old one. Hasn't got smart apps or anything like that. So I've got an electric car, different conversation, hate it, not getting into that. But the amount of apps that you have to be able to charge an electric car, that completely outweighs, like, you don't think about these sort of things.
yeah.
If you're an older person, you're not going to be able to have an electric car because you can't charge it anywhere.
Yeah, and that's it's very important, I think, as well. Sometimes we talk so much about technology, but when you're talking about diversification and even probably we can talk about ageism, but like what happened during COVID, there's plenty of pubs only allowed to pay via card, or I mean
Yeah,
via app or something like that, and there's older people who go to a pub every day and who only can pay in cash. So how do these people pay? So we need to make sure that some of the solutions still gives a variety and go back to old school, actually paying in cash. Now, if we pivot into caps lock, so I guess you're head of mentoring. So I wanted to ask you and see your views. I think mentoring is very important, especially now for career changes, bringing fresh talent as we discussed. But how does mentor, caps lock and mentoring think change your viewpoint on career changes?
So obviously, I am technically a career changer, and I suppose in a way, Caps Lock has inspired me to do that. Speaking to people every day that are changing into careers, I always thought that you're coming in entry level, regardless of whether you're been in another industry before, but actually I've seen myself firsthand how many people are coming in from policing or teaching or even manufacturing. They understand that engineering process and they're bringing those skills and going into other roles. So they're not actually, yes, they're coming in as entry level for cyber, but that they're not coming in as entry level people. They've got so many transferable skills that they're bringing into the industry, and it's so important from a diverse viewpoint and diverse experiences. I love seeing it. Now, don't get me wrong, not everybody is going to get a job in this current climate. We are in probably was a great time to leave recruitment. We are in a very weird recruitment market in the minute. I spoke to lots of recruiter friends at InfoSec. There's not a million jobs around. However, what you get with a career changer, whether it's via Capstock or from any other area, is they very quickly bring all those transferable skills that they've learned. They very quickly become middle tier. So they don't not starting, they might start as juniors, but within 12 months they're progressing. And you see this a lot with the Capstock alumni, where they get their first job and they're very quickly either promoted or they quickly move on to their second job and then suddenly they're senior, they're mid-level. You've also got lots of people, and I think this is great accolade for Capstock as well, that have come in without a degree. They've done the Capstock course and now they're working in Big Four. So Big Four are hiring these people, not even Big Four, all sorts of consultancies are hiring these people without degrees because they recognize the life experience that they're bringing. So it is massively helping from a social, economic viewpoint. I have a big bugbear with degrees. You shouldn't have to have a degree to get into this industry. It's completely elitist. A lot of people don't want to do a degree or haven't had the time or the funds or the life experience to want to go and do a degree. Another bugbear of mine, I see a lot of people that have done a degree, they've come over here, they've done a degree, they've done a master's. These are incredibly talented people, but the UK industry, there's not many people that will sponsor a visa. So we're bringing in lots of overseas students and we're taking their money, or the universities are taking their money, and then they're having to return because they can't get a visa after 2 years. And there's straight off the top of my head, there's 3 or 4 people that I've spoken to recently that I would hire in a heartbeat. And they've got some amazing skills, but they can't get jobs because they haven't got the visa. So that's another little bugbear of mine. But I suppose that doesn't mean that not every company sponsors a visa, but that's an extra challenge when you're trying to get a job in this marketplace. You've got companies left, right, and centre that are making redundancies. I think somebody told me at InfoSec the amount of vendors there was only maybe 2 that have been profitable in the last year because they've taken a lot of investor funding and actually we're in a really strange market. I'm glad I'm not in recruitment anymore. I will say that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've been talking as well to a lot of recruiters, and they kind of it's kind of hot and cold, and you can never know where it's going because normally there's been normally sometimes there's trends like okay, new year there's gonna blow up because companies are planning new budgets, and then but then it went up in January kind of and it fell flat on it, and I think that there is some life in there, but as you say, I spoken to a few recruiters yesterday, friends as you say, friends of mine as well, who are saying it's kind of hot and cold, but companies are hiring, but they are being very selective and
Mm.
very targeted hiring at specific niche skills that they're currently looking for.
Yeah.
And I think as you say, when you're talking, it's not necessarily, I think sometimes people that have been sold, that not necessarily sold by, say, Capstock a dream, but people sometimes see so many adverts where they says, oh, do this boot camp, you get 100 grand straight away after you finish boot camp. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think is managing expectations and understanding actually how hard it is to enter to enter, the industry. And also, I think another problem that we currently have, and I see this sometimes, companies being cheeky where they're advertising a junior role which attached junior salary, but they expect someone to have 2 years experience. So they're
Oh, yeah.
hiring a senior role, but for junior salary.
So what they want to do there is they want to steal someone else's training. They don't want to train their own staff. They want to steal someone else's training, which says, I'll let you interpret that however you wish.
Yeah.
The best companies will hire and they will grow talent. We don't so that security company doesn't tend to advertise. Now we get people that reach out to us all the time. Um, sorry for the inbox. What we tend to do is the people that reach out, will reach back out to them because they've taken some initiative when we're hiring. We are growing. There's always sort of different roles, but we will bring people in at entry level and we'll train them.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that we only ever take entry level candidates. We do take experienced people as well. But yeah, it's if the problem that you have if you're stealing someone else's training all the time is they're going to learn habits of how that company works. So for example, we don't have level 1, level 2, level 3 SOC. We triage. We don't keep passing that triage across. We train people on how to be SOC investigators rather than SOC analysts,
Yeah.
and how to properly triage, because that's actually the skill set. Using the different tools, you can train that. It is frustrating. Now, I do say to the caps lockers as well, there's so much opportunity in cybersecurity. Don't give up. Keep trying, but try different things. Don't cold apply to jobs, for example. Um, the other thing is when you go onto like LinkedIn, you might see there's been 100 applicants for a job. That doesn't mean those 100 applicants are right. It costs nothing to apply. Most of the time, you don't even attach your CV via LinkedIn. It's the networking, though. It's going out to the community. It doesn't have to be a Bsides. It can be networking in the pub. It can be talking to your friends who work in IT. Also, if you're currently in a company and you want to get into cybersecurity, have you told your employer that you want to get into cybersecurity? Is there no opportunity for you to develop where you are? Because once you get that first job, it doesn't have to be the perfect job. You're on the ladder then.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Um,
it's perfect. I wanted to get to, if you get a couple of sentences from you as well. You got so many things, so many projects on the go, and cybersecurity is always, we talk about, stress, burnout. How do you stay sane and prevent yourself from burning out? Do you have
I
any
love it.
specific techniques?
Great.
Because obviously, I know you got. I know we got common friends like Jasmine and some of the girls who are doing some amazing work. So, have you taken some of the lessons and used that in the day to day?
Yep. So I have got the wellbeing app. I don't use it as frequently as I should do, but I do practice mindfulness. I do on a weekend. I have to. Well, for a start, I've got a very supportive husband. I've got a very supportive family that help me with the children when I am away. But then when I'm not away, when it's the weekend, I'm really good at switching my phone off or letting my child have my phone if she wants to watch Disney or whatever. So I'm not constantly being online.
Yeah.
I do practice mindfulness. I use gratitude journaling, all that sort of thing. So I'm very much a glass half full person. It takes a lot for me to be down about something. I've always been very good at shaking things off, and I always try and find the best in every situation. Um, but yeah, I think getting away from your laptop, getting away from screens, having something that isn't just technology. Now, for me, I do use community events as a bit of an outlet. I love it. I love being around people. I think I've always been a people person, but also making sure that I am out and about. We all work remotely where we are. So actually having that face-to-face interaction is really important. I found one thing I did find was a big switch from recruitment to security was I was used to being on my phone all the time.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of Slack, Discord, Twitter, LinkedIn. It's not actually picking up the phone to people, which I do that a lot, which I suppose if there's someone I want to get hold of, I'll just ring them,
Yeah.
which some people are like, what, are you sure you're comfortable ringing? I'm like, yes, I've done it for 20 years. Sometimes you ring somebody and say, hey, sorry, you probably missed 1,000 emails in your inbox. I need to book a time in for this. Oh yeah, sorted. That stops that 10-week delay sometimes of trying to get hold of somebody. But yes, I love what it's Jasmine Askenzie, isn't it? What's the app called? It's completely escaped me. It's a wellness app, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
I want to say the wellness retreat, but it might not be that. But Calm, loads of different things. I do listen to podcasts when I'm working, and I just try and, be very grateful for the fact that I am in a very privileged position. There are people who would kill to work at that security company, and also probably to transition into the job that I've got. And I absolutely love it, and I'm really appreciative of it every day.
Brilliant. Now, I guess I just wanted to maybe to end on something, if we look in the future horizon, obviously you're working on loads of things, but anything coming out of whether it's that security company, whether anything that you're doing outside of work, anything exciting that you're working on that you can share some of the ideas maybe?
Okay, yeah. So we have got some exciting things happening at that security company. We've got a product that will be open sourced, that will be released in the back half of the year, but I can't really say much more about that.
Okay.
But another thing I'm really excited for is the hacking games. So if you go on to thehacking.games.com, the hacking games has been set up by Fergus Dunn. It's a mission that's kind of come out of the US where there's children that are going into cybercrime
Yep.
way sooner than they should. Like Generation Z, Generation A, most of the 80% of teenagers in the UK have committed cybercrime by the time they're 16. Now that might just be cheating on games, finding cheat codes, but that then leads into a life of cybercrime. There's people that will try and entrap these youth of today and
Yep.
tomorrow into cybercrime. So the hacking games is a mission that wants to hire more cyber defenders than bad hackers. That's what they want to do. They want to make a TV show. They want to find people who've gone into cybercrime and then turn that around into tech for good. So there's a few things that they're trying to do. There's going to be a TV show that they're trying to get launched, a bit like, from the same TV company that do Britain's Got Talent, things like that. So there's a mission that I'm supporting. I've joined their ethical council to try and help with that and to help bring people into that sort of thing. I'm really excited about what that holds. I think the future generation that you can see, like even with AI, and I've tried not to say that word, but even with like how fast technology is advancing,
Yep.
there are going to be threats coming that we're not prepared for, that we can't see coming. And how fast technology is advancing, the next generation need to be aware of that, but also they need to be on the good side rather than the bad side. So I
Yep.
think what hacking games are doing, that's really exciting for me, and I'm pleased to be part of that mission.
Sounds amazing. And then I guess, it really seems like, I think, as you say, show, bringing those skills and actually teaching the younger generation, the next upcoming generation is very important. But on that amazing note, we kind of been chatting away, and it's, time flies when you're having fun, I guess. And, I really want to thank, Rosie for coming along, sharing your ideas, about, we talked about Bsides, we talked about that security company, mentoring. I think there's very important lessons as well that we shared for some of the people that, either are on the way into cybersecurity or already are working in cybersecurity. So, thank you very much for your time.
You're very welcome.